You have labored so long, affirming until the tongue was dry, visualizing until the eyes ached, yet the prize still floats just beyond your reach. The effort itself has become the obstacle. Tonight, I bring a liberating truth. The final step is not a fresh technique, but the bold decision to stop trying and enter what Scripture calls the Sabbath. Imagine a master mason setting the last stone of an arch. The instant the keystone slides into place, the scaffold is struck, and the craftsman steps back. He does not linger to polish or press. He rests because the work is finished. That settled assurance is the Sabbath. It is not a date on a calendar. It is a condition of consciousness, the stillness that follows true creation. The world believes rest is leisure earned by toil, but Genesis whispers a sharper secret. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, for in it he rested from all his work which God created and made. Creation, you see, is not followed by rest. Creation ends in rest. Rest is the divine seal upon the thing imagined. I invite you to test a daring proposition. Your imagination is the keystone, and your acceptance of its finished act is the Sabbath. If even for a heartbeat you can feel that your desire is already fact so vividly that you taste its fragrance and wear its consequence, then drop the tool. Break the scaffold of questioning and effort. Stand back as the mason does and behold the structure held by unseen law. At once the outer world will protest. Voices, some familiar, some hidden, will insist you must do something more. Pay them no heed. The moment you reach for additional mortar, you betray the stone you have set. Resist the impulse to tinker, to peer beneath the soil of your own garden. For he who has entered into his rest has ceased from his works, as God did from his. So let us journey together. We shall trace the seed of imagination from its planting in the secret place to its silent repose in the Sabbath, and there discover the mightiest act of all, allowing. To understand this secret of effortless creation, we must turn to the greatest story of creation ever told. The scriptures tell us that God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. The world has misinterpreted this story for centuries, reading it as ancient history. But I am here to tell you it is a timeless psychological drama that unfolds within your own consciousness every time you create. The 6 days of labor are a metaphor for the period of your inner work. It is you, in your imagination, molding and shaping your desire. You are defining your scene. You are feeling its reality. You are impressing your subconscious mind with your new state of being. That is your sacred work. But the most crucial part of this story, the part that holds the key to all effortless manifestation, is the seventh day, the Sabbath. The Sabbath is not a day of the week. It is a state of consciousness. It is a profound mystical rest. It is the state you must enter after your creative work is done. It is a quiet, unshakable conviction that the thing you desired is now finished. It is a profound sense of inner peace, knowing that the seed has been successfully planted and the harvest is now inevitable. The state of trying, of struggling, of anxiously looking for signs, that is you, refusing to end the 6th day. You are trapped in an endless round of labor, never allowing creation to become a fact. To stop trying is to enter the Sabbath. It is to take your hands off your creation and trust the law of gestation. It is to rest in the feeling of it is finished. For only after God rested did his creation become a stable, objective reality. So too with you. Only after you enter this inner rest will your desire crystallize in your world. The principle is now clear. The Sabbath is not a day, but a state of profound creative rest. But you may ask, how do I enter this state? How do I know I have truly arrived? The art of entering the Sabbath is not an act of doing, but an act of yielding. It is the art of satisfying your spiritual hunger. Think of your desire as a great hunger. Your imaginal act is the feast you prepare for yourself. You must feast upon the feeling of your wish fulfilled until you are completely and utterly satisfied. You must feel its reality so fully that the hunger, the longing, the desire itself simply vanishes. This satisfaction is the doorway to the Sabbath. When you can think of your desire without the slightest trace of longing, you have succeeded. When the feeling is no longer one of wanting, but one of quiet, peaceful knowing, you are in the Sabbath. Let me be very practical. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, feel the reality of your wish fulfilled. Persist until you feel a profound sense of relief, a deep inner sigh that says, it is done, it is finished. This feeling of satisfaction is the signal that your subconscious mind has accepted your imaginal act as fact. Now, many will ask me, Neville, how do I know if my conviction is final? I will give you a simple test, a gut test, if you will. Ask yourself this in the quiet of your own heart. Would I stake $100 on this being true right now? If the answer is an easy, immediate yes, then you are in the Sabbath. If you hesitate, if there is a flicker of doubt, then your work is not yet done. You must revisit the scene, not with strain, but with love, until that quiet conviction blooms, and then you rest. Other questions will arise. How long must I stop thinking about the desire? My friends, there is no timer. The Sabbath lasts as long as your quiet conviction lasts. It could be for an hour, a day, or a week. The moment anxiety returns, you have stepped out of the Sabbath, and your work is simply to gently return to it. May I visualize again tomorrow? You might ask. Yes, of course, but you must be honest with your motive. If you do it because it delights you to revisit the feeling of your fulfilled desire, then you are only confirming the state. But if the urge springs from anxiety or doubt, then you are simply re-entering the creative act until it feels truly finished. Once it is finished, you rest again. And what if doubt whispers during the day? You do not wrestle with it. You do not argue. You simply answer it with the authority of the Creator. You say to that thought, it is finished. You breathe out and you shift your attention elsewhere. That 10-second dismissal, that refusal to be moved from your inner peace, that is the practice of keeping the Sabbath. The power of the Sabbath is not a theory. It is a law I was forced to prove to myself under the most demanding of circumstances. Many years ago, I was living in New York, but my heart longed to be in Barbados, where I was raised. I had no money to make the journey, and my family on the island was not in a position to help. For weeks, I remained in the state of trying. I would walk the streets of New York, my mind filled with the effort of wanting, of wishing I was elsewhere. And for weeks, nothing happened. Then my great teacher, Abdullah, told me something profound. He said, you are in Barbados. He did not say, you will go to Barbados. He stated it as a present fact. He was teaching me to enter the Sabbath. So for 1 week, I stopped trying. Every night, as I lay in my bed in a cold New York room, I assumed in my imagination that I was already sleeping in my old family bed in Barbados. I did not struggle to create the scene. I simply brought forth the feeling of being there. I could smell the sea air. I could hear the sound of the palm trees rustling outside my window. I fell asleep night after night in the peaceful, satisfied state of already being in Barbados. I had done my work. I had entered the Sabbath. I did not concern myself with the how. I did not worry about the lack of money or a ticket. I rested in the feeling of it is finished. And then the world began to move. Out of the blue, a small sum of money arrived from my brother. It was not enough for a ticket on the grand ship I had hoped for. The rational mind would have seen it as a failure, but I knew it was the beginning of the bridge of incidents. I accepted it and booked passage on a small, humble vessel. Now, the very next day, the grand shipping line, which had been fully booked, suddenly called to inform me of a last-minute cancellation. I was able to upgrade my ticket and travel home in the very comfort I had originally desired. I did not lift a finger to make any of it happen in the outer world. I simply entered the state of rest. The Sabbath and the world rearranged itself, conforming perfectly to the reality I had claimed within. We have traveled together, my friends, from the first stirring of desire to that hushed chamber we have named the Sabbath. I have told you that imagination, when believed, is creative, that rest is the seal of its work, and that a single scene felt as fact is mightier than a lifetime of anxious labor. Now, let me place the candle in your hand and bid you test the truth of these words. Tonight, when you retire, choose one wish, small enough that reason will not rebel, yet dear enough to quicken the pulse. Enter your privacy, enact the scene, feel its naturalness grow full and sweet. Then here is the daring part. Quit the stage. Walk off with head high, as an actor who knows the play is finished and waits only for opening night. Do not speak of it save in thanksgiving. Do not measure the hours. Simply live as one for whom the thing is. And when the evidence of fulfillment appears, be it in an hour or a season, pause and give thanks, not to an outside power, but to your own wonderful human imagination, for that is the Christ of whom the scriptures speak. Having thanked, lift your eyes to a larger horizon, for there is no limit to harvest once you have learned to let the seed rest. I have spoken these things not as theory, but as testimony. I urge you to become likewise a witness. Now, let us go into the silence.